Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A very good day to my lecturer, which is Professor Hajan Abu Qasim. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to explain about my task, which has been given through WhatsApp group, which is on ISB. First of all, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Nur Fazlina binti Badru Hisham. I am from AC220-5H. Okay. Let's not waste our time and start my presentation, which is on ISB. As everybody know, ISB stands for International Accounting Standard Board. But do we know what exactly is ISB? So I'm going to briefly explain about what is ISB. ISB is an independent private sector body that developed and approve IFRS, which is International Financial Reporting Standard. This means that MASB is a company that develop or create and approve the standard issued by the IFRS. Secondly, the ISB operates under the oversight of the IFRS Foundation, which means that the ISB is governed by the IFRS Foundation. And the ISB was formed in 2001 to replace the ISC, which is International Accounting Standard Committee. So this means that before 2001, IASB is known as IASC. So why this has happened? This is because IASC want to change its structure to bring about convergence between the national accounting standard and practices and high quality global accounting standard. Moving on to the purpose of the ISB. So point number one, the purpose of ISB is to assist the board of ISB in development of future international financial reporting standard and the review of its existing IFRS. So this means that ISB will help IFRS about its future or about its existing standard, which has been issued. This is because, as we all know, the standard is being created by human. And as we also know too that human law or the standard issued by human is not perfect. It may have flaws or its weaknesses, and it may also has its pros and cons. Because this is not a law or it is not a standard which is come from Allah or come from our Al-Quran and our Sunnah. So that's why it may have any flaws or weaknesses. For example, during my study in diploma, as I remember, during semester 1 and semester 2, we did a treatment to the share premium. We learn about how to treat the share premium. However, when I moved to semester 3 until now, there is no more share premium will be accounted in the financial statement. So that's why ISB will keep on reviewing the existing standard issued by the IFRS. Next point is help the board of directors in promoting the concept harmonization of regulation, accounting standards, procedures and method relating to the presentation of financial statement by reducing the number of alternative accounting treatment permitted by the IFRS. This means that ISB will help the board of directors to understand better the concept, the regulation and the accounting standard which has been issued, so that it is easy to be understandable. I mean, like, why do we make a standard or why do we make a rules if no one can understand it? And if it's something that is complex or complicated, people would never want to follow it. And point number 3, helping the National Standard Setting Committee in developing the national standard. So this is to ensure that the national standard issued and the international standard issued are in line. And the fourth point is to support the financial statement prepared to apply the IFRS while preparing the financial statement. So this is to make sure that the financial statement report is using the standard issued by the IFRS as the guidance or reference, so that it will be standardized. And point number 5 is facilitate the auditors to provide an opinion relating to the financial statement, whether the IFRS guidance has complied while preparing the financial statement or not. And last but not least, aid the user of financial statement in interpreting the information contained in the financial statement, as well as provide those who interested in the work of ISB about its approach to the formulation of IFRS. So the user of financial statement here can be investor, employees, supplier, or even the creditors. This can be the internal user and also the external user. Okay, moving on to the role of the ISB. The first point is full discretion in developing and pursuing its technical agenda, subject to certain consultation requirements with the trustee and the public. Okay, technical agenda here, for example, is research or post-project of ISB and IFRS Interpretation Committee. Example of the project which has been done is the changes in accounting policies and estimate, earning per share, and government grant. Point number 2 is the preparation and issuing IFRS and exposure draft following the due process stipulated in the Constitution. So the due process here consists a research program, develop a proposal before publication, re-deliberation and finalization, and of course post-implementation reviews. This is to ensure that the standard issued has any weaknesses or have any flaws. And point number 3 is the approval and issuing of interpretation developed by the IFRS Interpretation Committee. Next, we're going to move to the objective of IFRS. So the first objective is development and creation of global accounting standard. The primary purpose of IASB is to develop a single set of high quality, understandable, and enforcement accounting standard. This means that IASB wants to ensure that the standard it issued has a high quality and can be understandable by the other user. As I mentioned earlier, why do we make some rules or some standards so complicated that people cannot understand? If it's too complicated and it is too complex, people will not use it, since it is very hard to be followed. The next point is enforcement of standard. The IASB committee has the power to enforce the organization to comply with the accounting standard that promotes the use and rigorous application of those standards. This means that IASB has power to making sure that the organization or a company is using its standard as a reference to set up its financial statement. That is that is why it is important that the standard, as I mentioned earlier, that is why it is important for the standard to be understandable by the other user, since it is an international standard, so that everybody need to understand the standard. That is why it has to be easy and understandable with a high quality standard. Last but not least, systematic and in-depth research on enterprise. The function of the IASB does in-depth research of special needs of small and medium-sized enterprise and emerging the economies in fulfilling the objective of harmonization of an accounting standard. This means that IASB will keep on doing a research and development towards its standard issued, so that the needs of the organization can be fulfilled, and the objective of the IASB itself, which is harmonization of an accounting standard. Why it is important? This is because the user of financial statement is all over the world. Everybody must have the basic knowledge on how to understand the financial statement prepared if they want to be the user of financial statement. So if it is not standardized or it is not in line with whatever standard has been issued by the ISB, it has no point. For example, I want to invest in a company, in an overseas company. For example, in China, I want to invest in China. As I know, China may have a different language and its currency is also different. But if I have basic knowledge of understanding the financial statement, I may have opportunity to invest in a company since I know the ups and downs, the profit and the loss of the company, since it is standardized and it is easy to be understandable, since the financial statement has no difference with the financial statement issued by my country itself. So that's why it is important for the financial statement and the standard to be standardized, so that every user of financial statement can understand the financial statement issued. Moving on, which is IASB in Malaysia. So it started at 1997 when Malaysia wants to develop MASB, which is MASB stands for Malaysian Accounting Standard Board. MASB is a company that is also MASB also issued standard, but the standard issue also based on IASB. The reason why Malaysia developed MASB is because Malaysia want to tackle with something that is not being dealt by the IASB. For example, specific issues that are not dealt in the IAS, as I mentioned earlier. For example, in Islamic transaction, we prohibit Gara, Riba, and Maisir, and there is also and Malaysia also use Islamic finance in certain bank, for example in Bank Rakyat and Bank Islam. So this is not something that is being dealt by the IASB, since IASB is more focused on the conventional. And the second point, illustration or additional clarification for better understanding of the context of standard. For example, maybe IASB is using some terms or some words that is so hard for Malaysian people to understand. So that's why maybe that MASB can change some of the words or terms in the standard for people being more understanding. Next is compliance with local law and regulation, as I mentioned earlier, which is something that is not dealt by the Islamic finance, something that is not dealt by the conventional finance, which is about riba, gharar, and maisir. Since it is prohibited, it cannot be entered in Islamic finance. So that's why MASB is developed to be so that it is so the standard issue can be compliant with local law and regulation. And in 2004, MASB wants to support its accounting standard to those standards issued by ASB and to keep up with the development worldwide. So the first step that is being made by ASB is rename the standard as FRS, which is Financial Reporting Standard, and number 2 is renumbered to be in line with standard issued by ASB. For example, leases. ISB issued IFRS 16, and the number on leases at MFRS is also 16. So this means that both number has the same number, so it is in line with the standard issued by the ISB. And in 2005 and 2007, MASB revised the standard to be virtually identical with IASB standard. This will make job more easier, or the user of the financial statement will be more easier, since both standard has the same number and has the same name, as I mentioned earlier. Leases, property, plant and equipment, it has the same number and same name of the standard. So it is easy for us to make as reference. And in 2008, MASB issued a statement about their plans to bring Malaysia to full convergence with IFRS by 1st January 2012. I'm sorry. So, did MASB success or achieve its target to bring Malaysia to full convergence of with IFRS by 2012? Yes, Malaysia did. As you can see at the roadmap that is in the slide, it does show that Malaysia achieved full convergence with IFRS by 2012. Moving on, which is ISB in Islamic accounting. So ISB, as I mentioned earlier, does not deal with Islamic things, since it is more to conventional finance. So that is why ISB consult with bank across Middle East and Asia in order to know on how to bridge the differences between the accounting practices in Islam and in conventional finance. There may be something that cannot be used in Islamic transaction, which is obviously interest. Interest cannot be used in Islamic finance, which is we know it as riba. And we cannot also as I know that in US, if we gamble or if we win a lottery, the lottery can be treated as income to us and can be taxes. However, in Islamic finance, it is prohibited. So it is cannot considered as income because it is not something that we gain for our hardship. It is something that we gain because we are lucky, just like that. Okay, so next is in 2011, in order to tackle the flaws in this standard, IASB set up an Islamic consultative group. So what is Islamic Consultative Group? So Islamic Consultative Group is an advisory group. It advises to the board more on focusing on the challenges that may arise when IFRS standards are being applied to Islamic financial instruments and transactions. The members of the Islamic Consultative Group include Malaysia, representative from Malaysia, Indonesia, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, and many more. Moving on to point number 3, the Islamic Consultative Group members intend to focus on the challenges that may arise in the application of IFRS standard to instruments and transactions commonly referred as Islamic finance, as I mentioned and explained earlier. So I do found an article about the discussion or the meeting that have been held in Saudi Arabia with the Islamic Consultative Group, which is on 27th March 2018. I found this is interesting because there are some issues or discussion in this meeting, which is the MASB representative introduced that some IFRS standard can be applied to the Islamic contract that are commonly used in Malaysia, which is the IFRS standard mentioned in the meeting is IFRS 9, financial instrument, IFRS 15, revenue from contract with customer, IFRS 16, leases, that can be applied to the commonly Islamic contract that is being used in Malaysia, which is ITAB, which is Al-Ijarah Thumma Al-Bayt, Tawaruk, Musyarakah Mutanakisah, and Ijarah. So that is the end of my slide. I would like to thanks again to my lecturer, which is Professor Hajanawa Kasim. Thank you for spending your time to hear and watch my presentation. I really appreciate it, and I really hope that I am able and capable to explain about what is ISB, and I also fulfill the needs of the requirement needed in order to explain the ISB. I hope that you are in a good condition. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, madam. That is all from me. And lastly, I would like to say selamat menyambut bulan Ramadan. Assalamualaikum. Thank you, madam.